If you're running an e-commerce brand right now, you know this situation pretty well. Margins are tighter, funding is scarce, suppliers are squeezing you, and lenders aren't playing nice. But you're not alone. Almost 63% of e-commerce brands are either unprofitable or running out of cash right now. While fundraising from investors gets a lot of attention, that's just one piece of the puzzle. The difference between brands that scale and brands that die often comes down to one skill: negotiation. Most e-com founders lose thousands, even millions, because they don't know how to negotiate. Today I'm sharing the 10 negotiation strategies that every e-commerce operator needs to know, especially in this market. As an e-commerce founder, one of your key roles is to negotiate with different kinds of people: investors, co-founders, suppliers, vendors, customers, employees. But unfortunately, 70% of founders struggle with that. As far as I know, a lot of founders are conflict averse, meaning they don't want to get into fights and arguments. But those who do right can secure way better terms for their brand, be it from investors or from their suppliers. And starting with the first one, I'm going to share 10 effective negotiation strategies along with a bonus one so you can turn these pitches and negotiations into long-term partnerships. So most negotiations in e-commerce are a tug of war. Usually founders have a default mindset and they need to win at all costs. Your supplier wants to raise prices, your lender wants higher rates, and your investors want a bigger cut. That's what we call zero-sum game. Think this is where one side wins and the other side loses. But what if you flipped that mindset? This is where the first negotiation strategy comes into play. This is what we call competitive negotiation. And up to 90% of negotiations are competitive by nature. When you're constantly trying to outperform the other side, the best case outcome is often just less bad for one party, and the worst case scenario is you lose a deal immediately. This is why you need to shift your mindset from competition to collaboration. Now, this doesn't mean you giving up your position or being soft. You still know what you want, but you also seek to understand why the other side wants what they are asking for. The founders who can find ways to meet their goals without pushing others off the edge are the ones who build real partnerships. This mindset shift applies whether you're negotiating equity terms with an investor, net payment terms with a supplier, or your retainer with a service provider. Let me share something personal. When we acquired the e-commerce brand 3 years ago, we kept negotiating almost every 6 to 12 months with the supplier. We kept showing that our order volumes are increasing and why it makes sense to decrease the initial cost of goods for us. Now, ahead of the tariffs in October 2024, I went to China to meet our suppliers to negotiate in person and build the relationship. We kept going back to the table, renegotiating from first principles, tying up pricing to volume commitments, and also managed ultimately to cut our costs just before tariffs by 30%, while competitors were getting squeezed. That experience reminded me of the importance of negotiation, especially in hard e-commerce markets where you don't scale by spending more, but scaling by negotiating smarter across every single touch point in your business. Before we even talk, you need to prepare yourself to win the deal. This means before communicating with any supplier, investor, or lender, you need to deeply understand your own business, your margins, your burn rate, customer lifetime value, and your leverage points. The best preparation is to map out your BATNA, best alternative to a negotiated agreement, in advance. This BATNA will help you answer the following questions. What happens if this deal doesn't go through? What is your walkaway point? Most e-com founders often lose deals because they don't know their numbers code, their market dynamics, and their risk profile. When you have a strong understanding of your brand's value proposition, market position, and investor concerns, you can build a partnership that aligns with shared visions and goals. So you know your numbers, your counterpart's motivation, and your non-negotiables, while also reaching the other side pain points and just history. But being prepared does not help if you don't know what the other side really wants. This is where the third negotiation strategy comes in. Every negotiation has some wants and unspoken needs. The secret to a successful negotiation lies in identifying those concerns and desires beyond just money. For this, you need to hear what's not being said. This is because most e-com founders negotiate based on what they want. They want cheaper inventory, more flexible capital, or fairer terms. But you need to understand what the counterpart needs. This is also a reminder of the popular saying of Peter Drucker: the most important thing in communication is hearing what isn't said. For example, a lender might push for a higher rate when what they really want is just faster repayment. The same logic applies to suppliers. If a supplier requests a last-minute pricing change, he might be trying to meet minimum volume targets or cover raw material costs which increased on their end. So don't get stuck on surface level demands. Instead, understand the real why behind the smart questions. This way you'll get to know the hidden needs and concerns. And if you really want to upscale your negotiation skills, I highly encourage you to read one of my favorite books, Never Split the Difference by Christopher Voss. Also, do let me know in the comments if you have some other book suggestions on negotiations. Now, let's talk about the most important yet underrated skill that most e-com founders ignore. Most founders talk too much in negotiations, but they don't realize that the only chance to win a deal is by active listening. When you listen with empathy, you get to know the fears, desires, and motivations of your counterpart. For example, when you actively listen, you know the pain points, and then you can say something like, "I totally get why you're nervous about cash flow risk. Here's our rolling 13-week forecast. Let's look at how we've been managing payments and inventory turns." This builds transparency, and transparency builds trust, and trust wins deals, especially with inventory and supply negotiations. Once you've earned trust, you're ready to go into the next step. To become a more powerful negotiator, you need to ask the right questions. This is how you co-create the outcome. For example, if you're dealing with a supplier for your e-com brand, you can ask, what kind of order volume would make net 60 terms work from you? To become a powerful negotiator, you need to ask the right questions. This is how you co-create the outcome. For example, if you're dealing with a supplier for your brand and your products, you can ask, what kind of order volume would improve my payment terms, say net 60 or net 90 days. And if it's a bank or revenue-based financing player, a better question could be like, how can we structure the deal to give you downside protection without restricting our growth and not increasing interest rate? And if you're talking to an investor, what did your best performing portfolio of companies do differently early on? Whether you're negotiating with a supplier, debt provider, or even a logistics partner, these types of questions can help you win the negotiations and just get more trust and more communication and talking going. But all of this only works if you stay cool under pressure. In distressed market environments, emotions run high. You might feel insulated by a lowball offer or cornered by unfair terms, and that's where you need self-control. For e-commerce founders, right now especially, emotional triggers are everywhere. This could be in the form of inventory delays, working capital gaps, tariffs, increase in ad costs, your campaigns not running anymore and not working anymore, you being banned by Google or Meta or somebody else. There is so much constantly going on. But if you're calm, composed, and steady, you will make better moves. For example, this is how you should respond in a tough situation without being emotional. I understand you're hesitant about payment terms. Here's how our cash conversion cycle has improved. I believe this de-risks the situation for you. In fact, if you like, we can share our Seller Central seller board dashboard with you so you can actually see how we're selling. This emotional control matters just as much when a supplier pressures you to increase order size or keep reordering, or a service agency tries to push you into a long-term contract you're not ready for. But before you learn how to master your emotions, you should know that not every deal is a good deal. This is what leads us to the next negotiation strategy, knowing when to walk away. And if you like this video so far, I want you to press the subscribe button in this channel. It will really help me grow this channel and get you more strategies how to improve your brand, improve your profit, and generate more wealth for you. So, not every supplier is right for you. Not every agency partner is right for you. Not every investor brings value. And not every loan is worth the cost. So never negotiate from a place of desperation. You can calmly say, this doesn't feel aligned and I'd rather revisit later, and respect you, not someone desperate for capital, product, or credit. Here are some signs that you should walk away from the deal. It kills your cap table on the investor front. It chokes your margins on either the agency front or the debt front. It boxes you into a corner, debt or equity terms usually. And now don't get too comfortable, because not every deal goes according to plan. Just because a negotiation starts well doesn't mean it will end well. So don't be surprised when things go sideways. Instead, always plan for the curveball. Curveballs are the unexpected terms, requests, or reversals that seem to come out of nowhere. You'll be deep in talks with the supplier, everything is going well, and then suddenly they throw in a 20% MOQ increase, citing new policies. In 2024 and now 2025, when capital is tight, supply chains are unstable, and investors are more cautious than ever. There are higher chances of curveballs than ever before. In fact, in the post-COVID world, so from 2022, capital became tight. Supply chains, the CPG world changed forever post-COVID. And to be honest, from 2022, it became much harder to fundraise. Supply chains became way harder to predict, and from roughly 2020-22, the world for e-commerce brands changed drastically. Post the COVID highs, basically investors are really tough. It's hard to raise money in the first place. Suppliers are fighting for survival. There are tariffs, there are geopolitical risks, there are energy issues, and you need to make it work. And curveballs are basically everywhere. There is a higher chance of curveballs than ever before. In fact, over 65% of e-commerce founders report facing at least one major unexpected change during negotiations, especially during downturns like we're seeing right now in the consumer market. When a curveball hits, the worst thing you can do is get defensive or take it personally. That's what most founders do. But first, you need to recognize what a curveball looks like. If you're negotiating with a seasoned investor or supplier, they've likely done this 100 times more than you. Here's a simple line I've used and taught founders to when they get hit with a surprise term. I didn't expect it. Let's unpack what's driving it so we can find a path forward that works for both of us. And to identify a curveball, you need to know what you're worth and why. This is what we will cover in the next few minutes. Most founders, especially in e-commerce, undervalue themselves, especially in down markets. You're surrounded by headlines about DTC brands shutting down, VCs pulling back, or debt getting more expensive. That environment messes with your head, and your negotiation power drops with it too. And according to data from CB Insights, e-commerce startups closure rose 41% year over year in 2023, and we don't even have the new data after the tariffs. So if you're still standing in this market, you're already doing better than most. To prove your value, you can share screenshots of your retention metrics, your margins, your sales steadiness. And if you're renegotiating or negotiating for the first time better payment terms, historical behavior and historical data is worth a lot. If you're asking for lower MAQs, bring in your average sell-through rates. Remember Warren Buffett's line, price is what you pay, value is what you get. If you're renegotiating fulfillment contracts, your operational efficiency metrics like return rates, delivery timelines, or your customer success score can help justify better terms as well. With that said, let's move to our final negotiation strategy. One of the most underused strategies in negotiation is visualization. Athletes visualize the race. Founders should do the same for negotiations. Michael Phelps, the most decorated Olympian in history, was known for rehearsing every single part of his race in his mind. Not just the perfect execution, but every possible problem. You see some of the skiers ahead of the slope down, they do this, where they kind of like stand and they just, visualize. This is what you have to do. And it's not just the perfect execution, but every single problem, every single possible problem as well. Negotiation works the same way. Before any big meeting, whether it's negotiating a 120-day payment plan or securing $500, $1,000 debt, before any big meeting, whether it's negotiation of better payment terms with your supplier, or whether you want to get a loan from an investor or renew with your revenue-based financing provider, write out every part of the conversation. A Stanford study found that leaders who use visualization before high-stakes intersections, so not just the perfect execution, but every possible problem as well. Negotiation works the same way. Before any big meeting, whether it's negotiating with your investors, your debt providers, your suppliers, sit down and write every part of the conversation. A Stanford study found that leaders who use visualization before high-stake interactions improve their performance by up to 30%. And here's a quote I love from Charlie Munger. Spend each day trying to be a little wiser than you were when you woke up. Do that for a long enough time and you'll get out of life what you deserve. That's what visualization does as well. Now, if you follow the strategies in this guide so far, you're probably negotiating on a higher level than most e-commerce founders already. But wait, there is one last thing. Most e-com operators think the negotiation ends when the deal is signed. The really important thing and the reality is that deals don't end at the handshake. What you do after the negotiation often determines whether that deal actually becomes successful. Let's look at the numbers. In the venture world, 72% of follow-on funding comes from investors who already backed you once. And when it comes to debt finance, lenders are 3 times more likely to increase the credit line if borrowers maintain consistent, proactive reporting. So if you raised money, even from angels or family offices, send them a monthly update with your KPIs, your wins, your losses, and the roadmap ahead. For suppliers, do the same. Update them on how the product is selling. Give feedback from customers. If you're using revenue-based financing, treat your debt providers like a stakeholder and share your revenue snapshots. Whether you closed the deal, walked away, or landed somewhere in the middle, thank them for their time, their respect, and their interest. To sum it all up, this is one of the most brutal operating environments we've seen in e-commerce and CPG in the last decade. Capital is harder to raise and customer acquisition is more competitive than ever. Whether you're negotiating with a supplier, a growth agency, a debt provider, or even a potential investor, join my Telegram community for e-commerce founders who are focused on one thing: profitability. It's where we share real insights, proven tactics, and help each other navigate challenges like these every day. Tap the link below and I'll see you on the other side.